All right, let's get into it because if you told me this could happen to a decorated military officer in broad daylight, I'd have laughed, shaken my head, and said, not in this country. Yeah, that happened. It started like any other day for Major Tiana Brooks, just wrapped up a long training operation out at the federal base, maybe 40 miles outside the city, running on too much coffee and not enough sleep, just want to get home, change out of her uniform, and see her dog. Picture it. Unmarked black SUV, still in uniform, her chest lined with a dozen hard-earned bars, that crisp set of gold insignia that makes you straighten your back just seeing it. Honestly, she looked like something off a recruitment billboard, the type you salute without thinking. But none of that mattered when she hit the intersection out on the edge of town and saw the blue and red lights flare up behind her in the rear view. First one patrol car, then another. No sirens, no reason, just lights. She pulled over, rolling the window down like it was nothing new. Two officers approached one, did the whole flashlight routine. The other hovered a step behind, hand already on his holster, sizing her up. Ma'am, this vehicle came back flagged. Gonna need you to step out. Now, I don't care how calm you are, there's something in that line that sets her teeth on edge. Flag for what? But she knew better than to argue, years of training drilled into her, that you de-escalate first, question later. So she got out. One officer started patting her down with more force than necessary. The other went straight for her passenger door and started digging through her stuff. You're interfering with a federal officer, she warned, her voice steady, her eyes locked, and you need to stop this now. That didn't slow them down. In fact, one of them just chuckled. Ma'am, we don't care what uniform you put on. You're being detained. And just like that, cuffs snapped on her wrists. She didn't shout, didn't make a scene. Just sat there in the back seat of the squad car, hand behind her, radio static humming from the front, her back straight as a ruler. The officer in the passenger seat took one look at her badges, clearance tags, even the Department of Defense access card clipped to her bag, and just snorted impressive cosplay, he muttered, tossing it aside. At the station, they booked her like any other civilian mugshot, fingerprints, no questions, no nod to her uniform. When they finally let her make a call, she dialed a secure number by Heart Colonel Vega's office. Immediate protocol escalation. Badge ID 947 Alpha. The desk officer snatched the phone away, staring at the screen like it had turned into a snake. Then things happened fast. Less than a minute later, the precinct lot filled with the headlights of three black government SUS agents in suits fanned out, badges in hand. The officers who'd cuffed her went pale as bedsheets. Inside, the air changed in a heartbeat. The lead agent looked at Tiana and asked, Major Brooks, are you injured? She just rubbed her wrists and said, no, but they compromised a federal officer and obstructed classified transport. The agent turned to the two cops, voice hard as steel. You tampered with a DoD asset, unlawfully detained a high-clearance officer, and ignored her identification. You triggered a Level 2 internal security breach. Do you have any idea what that means? The precinct captain stumbled out, trying to play it off. Is there a problem here? The agent didn't even look at him, just declared, this entire station is now under federal review. That was it. The officers were pulled aside, their badges and guns collected, official suspension packets handed out like party favors. Phones started ringing off the hook. Internal Affairs, the Department of Justice, they were all looped in before you could blink. By the time Tiana was uncuffed and walked out, the precinct was in chaos, reporters circling the lot, cameras panning to catch a glimpse of her as she got into the lead SUS, silent, composed, not a word for the press. She didn't need to say anything. The headline wrote itself by sunset. Back at the base, Tiana walked into a standing ovation from her peers. Colonel Vega pulled her aside. You handled that with precision. Washington's already moving on Ithiri, not sweeping this under the rug. Tiana just shook her head. It's not about me, sir. It's about the next officer they pull over without a second thought. And Vega replied, still, your call ended 2 careers today. She said quietly, not because I had power, because they abused theirs. Weeks later, the internal review came down. The 2 officers were found guilty: misconduct, unlawful detainment, failure to verify credentials. Their certifications were revoked for good. One tried to appeal, But the evidence was her tightest sealed affidavit laid out the classified violations in black and white. The captain retired quietly. But Tiana? She just went back to work. No press conferences, no book deal, no crusade for publicity. She didn't chase headlines. Even as they followed her for a while, federal major wrongfully arrested by local police, their careers end with one call. But that wasn't the story, not really. What people didn't see was how, in the months that followed, departments across the country updated their police cross-verifying uniforms and ID, new briefings, reforms that rippled out because of one phone call. The only thing Tiana said to anyone outside her circle was caught on a bystander's phone. A simple line as she stepped into the SUV. Next time, check the stripes before you reach for the cuffs. That line went viral, but the case was closed. The consequences, though, kept rolling. The town mayor gave a press statement blaming miscommunication, but the citizens weren't buying it. A petition for transparency and accountability picked up over 200,000 signatures. And Tiana, she became something of a quiet legend among her peers, not for how loud she fought back, but for the discipline and self-control she showed when most would have broken. The Pentagon gave her a private commendation not for retaliation, but for restraint. Federal agencies started using her case in their training seminars, how not to treat someone in uniform, no matter who you think they are. One of the fired officers later spoke, off the record. She wasn't loud. She didn't need to be. The scariest part wasn't the agents. It was realizing she had more control in cuffs than we did in uniform. Tiana never commented, never looked back. She shipped out on a new overseas assignment, same steady hand as ever. But for everyone who'd been there that day, in that precinct, there was a lesson burned in their memory. Some people wear their authority like armor, some carry it in silence. And when they finally speak, the whole room listens. Months passed. The headlines faded, replaced by newer scandals, louder voices, but in law enforcement and military circles. Major Brooks's case stuck. The arrest footage quiet, undramatic, just her sitting straight in the back seat became mandatory viewing in some places. Not for the drama, but for the lesson. Respect the uniform, even when you think nobody's watching. That phrase ended up stenciled on the wall at Fort Burr Field, right beneath her ODID, framed for everyone to see. Back in her hometown, a scholarship in her name appeared for young women entering the military, paid for by an anonymous donor, just a line on the plaque. For those who walk the line with dignity and strength. The precinct itself? Federal oversight, a new chief, fresh rules, and actual shift in culture. And Tiana, asked in a rare closed-door session if she felt vindicated, just said, "I didn't need revenge, I needed correction." Then she stood, saluted the room, and left. Justice, for her, was always about accountability, not punishment. A year later, at a federal seminar on authority and protocol, some young cadet raised his hand. Is it true, the story about the officer who made one call and changed everything? The instructor, a veteran commander, nodded. It's true. She gave them every chance to do the right thing. And when they didn't, she reminded them who they were dealing with. The lesson stuck. And in every stop, every badge worn, the silence she carried echoed louder than any command. Because you don't earn respect by demanding it. You earn it by remembering who you serve, especially when nobody's looking. In precincts, bases, and classrooms across the country, her story lived on it for the headlines, but for the discipline. And every now and then, when a rookie officer hesitated, unsure how to treat the woman in uniform standing in front of him, he'd remember some calls are louder than sirens. And some uniforms change everything. So let me throw it to you. Where's the line between authority and abuse? And what does real accountability look like to you? Drop your thoughts below, because if this story proved anything, it's that sometimes all it takes is one person standing their ground quietly, calmly, and without compromise to change the whole damn system.